I've earned tons of fame and silver doing tracking, an often overlooked open world activity in Albion that is quite fun and easy to get into. If you already enjoy playing in the open world, this can further enhance your experience. In this video, I'll explain the best way you can do this activity while playing solo, going over possible builds that you can use and tips and tricks. I'll be showing most hunts you can do and showing the results at the end, so let's get started. Alright, welcome to this tracking session. Today we'll be going over how to be most effective at tracking, how the general gameplay loop of this activity goes like, and what you can do to be most effective in fame earned and silver earned. So in terms of the general fame that this activity grants, I think the fame for solo tracking is pretty good. It can be an enhancement to the fame you would otherwise anyway gain if you would do black zone fame farming. So I think it is a very worthwhile activity to do. And first things first, we are starting from a hideout, so I recommend you join a guild that is attuned to your needs and has a hideout, because it's going to be much easier to make fame and profit if you start from any exterior zone rather than starting straight from a city in the neighboring zones, because these are going to be crowded with gankers and other people doing the same activity. So just generally helpful to have a guild with a hideout. Additionally, if you want to make extra profit, make sure you bring all the tools and all the gathering you can do with you at the same time, because this is just going to give you more silver and you're also going to be leveling up your gathering in the meantime. We'll see how we do this. We don't actively gather. We just look for enchanted resources, and we gather them whenever we see them. So it just gives us some extra silver. Now for the gear setup, I will actually switch this omelette out. So you need to use a pretty high tier weapon. You need to have a good amount of IP on your weapon, because tracking is gonna take a long while if you go with a weak weapon. And also you should get a weapon that is good at doing single target damage. So this would include basically any crossbow. This isn't quite the most effective, the sniping crossbow is not the best, but I'm using it because I want to level it up, and we'll talk about leveling up gear shortly, but let's go over the rest of the gear. So the most important thing is the weapon. Good choices for this are also some bows. For example, the whispering bow is very good at single target damage. The one-handed dagger is very good at single target damage, and there are some other options as well, but for example, some of the shape-shifting weapons like the light collar. So yeah, any good single target weapon should be used, and I recommend going at least tier 7. If you do not have specs especially, maybe you should go to tier 8. Okay, and the rest of the gear, you should be using something that contributes the weapon you're using. For example, if you're using a dagger, you should probably use the hunter jacket, as it gives you attack speed. But for crossbows, you can basically use any cloth setup, especially for the armor set, for the armor slot. Otherwise, the helmet and the boots can be literally any boots you want to spec up. So currently I'm using this crossbow because I want to spec it up. As you can see, I have a good amount of specs right now in crossbows, and this is the remaining main crossbow that I want to spec up to 100, so it's the one I'm using. Previously, I have been using the heavy crossbow for this activity, and I leveled it from 50 to 100 spec just using tracking in a few days. Alright, and yeah, as I mentioned, the rest of the gear should be something you want to fame up. And I'm using a cloth robe because it gives a good amount of attack damage bonus, which is going to speed up tracking as an activity. If you're doing this, you should bring a carry mount. I recommend the stag, as it is the cheapest and most versatile for this activity. And the cape should complement your weapon. In this case, the Carleon cape complements crossbow. For potions, make sure you bring invisibility potions, because if you do get ganked while you are fighting a mob, you need to have a way to get out, and the invisibility potion is basically the only escape chance you have if you do get ganked while you are on a tracking mob. Just know that if there's more than one people trying to gank you while you are fighting a mob, you are probably going to die, so make sure you are fine with risking basically about 1 million silver of equipment. I haven't gotten ganked once while I leveled up from level 0 to level 56 in tracking, and we're gonna go over the levels in a bit. But I haven't gotten ganked once while tracking, but your mileage may vary, and depending on how hostile the zones you're doing tracking in are, you might be getting ganked more often. That's why I recommend finding a guild with a hideout that you enjoy playing in. Alright, other than that, you have to bring your gathering tools. Just bring whatever gathering you want to do. I recommend trying to get at least tier 5 in most, because then you will have more opportunities for gathering, because tracking as an activity is gonna take you across many zones. So for example, if you start tracking in Driving End, you can be sent to Sunfang Approach and then to Sunfang Ravine. So you're just gonna be wandering around the black zone, and that means you're going to be crossing into different biomes, so you'll need to have different gathering tools for that. And the most important part, make sure you bring your tracking toolkit. So the way this works is at level 0 or at level 1, you will only be able to use the tier 3 tracking kit. And to unlock this, you just have to kill a few mobs. You should basically already have this unlocked. So you bring the tier 3 tracking toolkit, and then you can track tier 4 mobs. So as soon as you track maybe 1 or 2, you will be unlocking the tier 4 tracking toolkit. So make sure you just immediately upgrade to this, because this is going to allow you to track tier 5 mobs, and that greatly increases the amount of mobs you can find, and speeds up your leveling just quite a bit. Very soon after, so after 10, 20, I don't know, I don't remember exactly how many, but very quickly, in a few hours, you should unlock tier 5 toolkit. This is going to allow you to track tier 6 mobs. So make sure you also immediately upgrade to this as soon as you can. Afterwards, it's gonna take a bit to unlock the tier 6 tracking toolkit, and that is what we are at right now. But this is gonna allow you to bring in tier 7 mobs, which is the Runestone Golem. And this is gonna take quite a while to level to tier 8. So I've been doing this for a decent amount of hours, and I've only reached a level 56. The good part about tracking is as soon as I reach level 60, I will unlock the tier 7 toolkit, and this is gonna allow me to track any mob in the game. So the Downbird and tier 8 quarries are gonna be unlocked, and those give quite a good amount of fame and silver as well. Alright, so that's the gear we're using, and I'm quickly going to swap out to using pork pies instead of omelette. Another big benefit of using a hideout is the buff you receive. So you receive an almost 10% fame buff if you use a hideout. Even if you're a solo player, I recommend trying to find a guild. So as soon as you want to begin tracking, just go to basically anywhere and press your tracking hotkey. So you can find the tracking hotkey if you go over to controls, key bindings, and then you should have it here, use tracking toolkit. I have it bound to you, but you can bind it to anything you like. And as soon as I press it, I'm going to begin tracking. When this channel completes, I reveal on the map all the tracking that is available to me. So these are all mobs I can select. And generally, I look for the highest tier one. So the rare quarry is a special kind of track because you can find these in any tier from 4 to 8. From 4 to 8. And I'm going to be going for this tier 6 quarry that I found here on the map. After a while it disappears, but I remember where I've seen it. And just remember that while you're doing this activity, you should also be doing open world fame farming. So for example, I have a few upgraded mobs here. I'm gonna take advantage of that, and I'm going to be taking them down. So the heavy crossbow was way better at clearing groups of mobs than the normal crossbow, but this one is still good enough. I'm gonna be using this. And there's a few more mobs here, so I'm gonna use them as well. And then let's go to where we saw that track previously, which was right over here on the map. You'll get used to it, to remembering where you've seen the tracks. You'll get used to it as you do this activity. So a tier 6 quarry is a decent choice. I generally would like to find as many tier 7s as I can now because I can track tier 7. But tier 5 to tier 6 quarries already give a decent amount of silver if you're lucky. So they're definitely worthwhile to track. They also level up your tracking, so basically any track you do will give you tracking fame. If you want to level it up as quickly as possible, you should probably do as many tier 4 tracks as you can, because these take shorter time to kill and you get more tracks in, and they give the same fame as the higher level tracks. So how tracking works is I went to the first track that begins the hunt. So it begins this mission over here on the right side. And then I need to go to the zone that I see on the map. And this can be multiple steps. So the step I found right now is one where I have to find another track and interact with it. And this is going to continue the hunt somewhere else on the map. So now I have to go over here in this circle and find the track there. If it's a track, or it might be the mob. And here we have the mob already. So as you level up tracking, you're gonna find the mob faster. However, when you're at low levels of tracking, you're gonna have a lot of steps that you've just seen where you have to find a track and then go to the next zone. You'll have more of these. But that's fine because it's a pretty fast way of leveling if you find many of those steps. So let's begin and let's fight this mob. And every mob will have its own abilities and rotations that you'll get used to in time as you do this activity. Any of the mobs are basically soloable if you're doing solo tracking, so you should be fine. Try to dodge as many of the abilities. The auto attacks don't deal as much damage, but the abilities do. So try to dodge them. And there we go. It flees because it is exhausted. Usually this means that you didn't deal enough damage. As a solo player, you have to have really, really good gear to be able to deal enough damage to not have the exhaust. So don't worry about it. You should have enough damage to deal more than 50% of the mob's health in one rotation, because then you are the most effective and you will not have these flee steps too often. Again, remember to do any upgraded mobs you find, because they're just free fame and silver. And there we go, 100k fame in a tier 7 zone. And again, we find the mob, and you see the circle is very large now around the mob. This means that if I deal enough damage on this rotation, the mob will not flee again. However, if I take too long to kill it, it will flee again, but the damage will remain on the mob. So again, if you don't have this high of tier, you can still do tracking, but it's just gonna take more of these steps because the mob is gonna flee multiple times until you take it down. Okay, and this was a very bad rotation. So I saw a player approaching, and I just got hit by 2 or 3 abilities in succession, so you should definitely not do that. So I'm just gonna reset this fight, and in this case you see that if you reset the fight, the damage does not stay on the mob, so it healed up to what it was initially. Now this is not a good, you don't want to have this happen too often, but it's better to be safe than to just die to some random ganker. So if you see players, you should usually reset the fight if you take too much damage. Let's see. Again, I get hit. This isn't the greatest weapon because you have so much stand time while you channel the ability. And you see that the tier 6 quarry gave me 150k fame. That is with 20%, almost 20% fame buff. And we get 100k of loot from this mob, which is decent for maybe 5 to 10 minutes of activity. That is a good result. So as soon as I finish a mob, I like to use my tracking kit again, and I can continue to the next one. So when I can, I focus on quarries and runestone golems because these are either tier 7 or the quarry just gives good amount of silver. Usually the quarry gives the most raw silver, and the other creatures give their parts that are used in creating the shapeshifter staves. So these ones, which you can see over here, and they're worth a decent amount, but the quarries generally give more silver. But anyway, I'm going to be tracking this imp because the imp is tier 6. So all the creatures are fixed in their tier. For example, the imp is always tier 6, the werewolf is always tier 5, and so on. It's only the quarry mob that can be anything from tier 4 to tier 8. And it gives fame and silver in accordance based on the tier that it is. And as I said before, I prioritize quarries as high of a tier as possible, then runestone golems, and then hellfire imps, and then whatever else I can find. Because remember, any creature you do gives the same amount of fame in tracking. You do get more combat fame from the higher tier creatures, but your goal is to get to being able to track tier 8 mobs as fast as possible anyway, so you should be doing as many mobs as possible. And we saw that in this circle we got the mob right away. We didn't have to do the tracking, the finding more tracks, so we can engage this right away. Again, you're not ever going to be able to kill the mob in one turn unless you have very, very good gear and the circle is large. So as you see here, the circle isn't even large, so this mob is gonna run anyway. Even if I were to deal 1000 million damage to it, it's gonna run away at 40% HP, or it's gonna run faster if I take too long to get it to that HP. So let's see what happens. Try to focus on dodging the abilities first and then dealing as much damage as possible. I'm gonna try to use my snipe. And you have to dodge these special abilities, otherwise you take a ton of damage. The imp is pretty hard to do without taking much damage. So as you can see, it is very risky to do this activity because I'm left with 40% HP at the end of the fight. That is why we always have to have the invisibility potion to be able to have an attempt, to even have an attempt at running away if gankers come upon us. And while I run around the zones finding the mobs, here we have a track, for example, but it's fine because each of these tracking steps is going to give me some fame. So you can see right now 270 fame, and that is tracking fame. So we definitely like these steps because they give fame. We obviously would like to encounter the mobs sooner rather than later, but even if you get many of these steps, and if you're unlucky you can get like 10 of these steps before you find the mob, you're still getting fame in tracking, so you shouldn't stress too much out about it. And for the first time we see that this step takes us to a different zone, so we are not staying in the tile we're in. We have to go one tile over and continue tracking there. So that is why see, this is why we want to do gathering, because we have these enchanted resources, but I do not have tier 6 unlocked, so I'm not able to gather that enchanted tier 6. But it's fine, even finding tier 5s every now and then is gonna give you some silver. Alright, so as I was saying, we're going one zone over, and we're going to continue there. You can be carried 2, 3, maybe even 4 zones during one of these hunts, so just be prepared to roam around quite a lot in the black zone. Right now we're doing solo tracking, but if you have a group of friends to do this with, group tracking is definitely better. It gives more fame and more silver, so I would recommend it if you have the people to do it with. And I usually stop and gather some of these resources, maybe 5-1. Definitely 0.2 resources and 0.3 resources as often as I can. And again, take all the upgraded mobs. It's just good amount of silver and fame. And we see a death just happened. Let's see. You can use stats and the name of the person to see who did the kill, and this is a ganker indeed, so we should be very careful right now because there are gankers on this map. I'm going to continue tracking because I don't mind dying for the content, but just know that if you know there are gankers on a map, you should probably move to a different one. And in this specific case, we are a bit lucky, and the tracking actually sends us out of this map. So usually you don't like being carried across maps, but in this case, since we know there's gankers in this specific map, we are fine with going to a different tile. Let's eat our pork pie because we get more. And let's see, even 5 to hide. Each of these is almost 4k. Not only that, but we get more fame. So in the future, when we reach tier 6, 7, we're gonna get even more silver from our gathering profession. And we see that this track is very stubborn. This is already like the 4th, I think, step. So if it says find a track and interact with the track, then you know it is it's a find the track step. You're not gonna be encountering the mob in this one. But we get some more of these, so let's take them down and do a bit of gathering. I find it a decently relaxing activity, this tracking with gathering combined. If you're gonna do black zone farming anyway, tracking is the perfect complement to that. Since it basically gives you a guaranteed circle mob every 10 to 15 minutes, and that just gives you more fame and more silver. So the tier 4 mobs give about 80k fame, that is with 20% fame buff. The tier 5 ones give about 110. Tier 6 about 150. We just saw it when we defeated the... I don't remember what we just defeated. Tier 6 quarry. And tier 7 gives about 200. And tier 8, I would imagine, gives about 250,000 fame. So, quite decent amounts. And we find some 0.2 resources, always take those. We have a circle mob. And I just like the variety that this activity provides, because you're constantly just finding different things. You're finding resources, you're finding mobs, sometimes you're finding players to fight with. So I think tracking is a good activity that was added to Albion, and I think it is quite underrated. I think few people actually do this. It is definitely easier to do not from a city. So again, try to find a base of operations deeper in the Black Zone. Even if you go to one of the rests, so Merlin's Rest, Arthur Rest, it's much better to do it from there. If you do not have a guild or do not want to join a guild, just go to one of these cities instead and do your tracking from there. And hey, we're lucky and we find a circle boss, actually a spiky boss. So this is gonna give a good amount of fame. And it's basically a tier 6 tracking mob. That's how much fame would give. That's how much fame a tier 6 tracking mob would give. So we take those. And here we find these. And this time we should be taking it down. And we see we get only about 30k without the tome. So quarries always give more silver than the mobs. And here we have a tier 8 track that would be very nice if we could take it, but we need the tier 7 toolkit for that. So just a few more levels and we will be able to track tier 8 as well and just have more silver, more fame coming our way. And as with any gathering profession, make sure you turn auto learn on this specific tracking node, because it's gonna take a very long time to level up otherwise. I definitely do not recommend you trying to level this without learning points. The same way I would definitely not recommend doing leveling up gathering without using learning points on the initial levels. So for example, for skinning, as soon as I reach 20% here, I'm gonna use the learning points to go the rest of the way, because it takes so long otherwise. And the last track we just didn't reveal any tracks in the area, so what we have to do now is to go to a completely different zone so that the circles overlap as little as possible. And then we're gonna try again. Let's see if we can find more tracks. But again, on the way there, I'm just going to do some gathering, pick up 5.1, 5.2 resources. We have a tier 4, a tier 5 quarry, and I think we're just gonna go ahead and take that one. So let's clear the area a bit. And we're gonna take the tier 5. Tier 5 isn't the greatest, we prefer tier 6 and above. And this mob is being very annoying because you cannot do the track if you're being attacked. Yeah, we prefer tier 6 and above, but sometimes you just don't find them. So we're just gonna take tier 4, tier 5 anyway, because we want to level up our tracking. Since you're gonna be wanting to get the quarries quite often, I also recommend turning on learning points for the specialty, the rare quarry tracking specialist node, or this one, because it's gonna give you quicker hunting for quarries specifically. And basically you're always going to be wanting to take these on. And again, we have to know the rotations of every mob, stay out of the indicators. It's quite simple to learn and intuitive. This beam is not dodgeable, you need an interrupt for it, but I used my helmet already, I should have kept it for this. Like this, and we interrupt it, because otherwise we take a lot of unavoidable damage. And you see, since the circle was big from the very beginning, we have the opportunity to take down the mob in one round without it running away. But I don't think I'm gonna have enough damage to do that. See, it flees because it is exhausted. So when it says it's exhausted, it means you took too long to kill it. If I had a bit more damage, then I could have taken it down directly without it fleeing. And when the mob flees, you do not get tracking fame. So obviously, if you have the money to go even higher gear, or maybe going something that's better, like a one-handed dagger. I'm using this set because I want to level up these specific weapons and armors. But if you specialize with a one-handed dagger, I think you can more reliably take them down in one cycle instead of them running away. And here we have it. And we get 50k. Not good, not terrible. It's just average for a tier 5. Alright, we have a panther. Panthers are only tier 4. I generally don't spend the time doing them, but just for the sake of the video we can show what fighting one looks like. And it sends us to a new zone, so let's go over there. And here we have the panther. Panther dodges a lot, so I don't really like fighting this. And it also spawns these clones. And that goes, there goes the Panther. We get a Claw, which is worth almost 50k. So you see that there's money to be made from the lower ones as well. Alright. Let's see what we can find in this area. This is a pretty dry hunting session because we haven't found a single tier 7 yet. Again, the tier 7 golem doesn't give much silver, but it does give a good amount of fame, so we prefer taking those when we see them. And obviously the tier 7 quarries are the best option we have right now, but we just haven't seen any yet. So we're gonna take the tier 5 quarry instead, and we're just gonna go with it. This is recorded before the new update comes out, so the Path to Glory update. And that one is gonna introduce tracking in the Roads of Avalon as well. So if you are a player that doesn't have a guild or you don't want to join one, tracking in the Roads of Avalon is probably going to be the better option for you, because you're just gonna encounter less Zergs messing with you. And we see we just don't have enough damage to take it down in one rotation. It gets away with 10% HP, which is a bit annoying. Maybe it would be worthwhile to upgrade the weapon, but we're already pretty expensive with 1 million in gear, so it's a risk that you're probably not willing to take with such a dangerous activity. So as I was saying, the Roads of Avalon, they're adding tracking to them with a new quarry mob as well, which is nice. And yeah, it's definitely gonna be a good activity to do. You can also bring your gathering tools there. And I think it's a really good change they're making to add the roads, to add the tracking to the roads. And let's see, we got another 50k, which is a decent amount. It's just pretty consistent silver. It's not amazing. Sometimes you can get a very worthwhile drop, but not every time. And let's go. We have our first tier 7. So we have a golem and a track, a werewolf track. And we're going straight for this one. Let's begin. And we have to go back to the map that we just came from. Wow, there's an 8-2 here. Too bad I only have tier 4. Tier 4 in Stone Gathering. It's gonna be a long while before I get any tier 8 gathering. So I'm playing on the Europe server now, but I had a few tier 8s on the West server. But it takes a long while, and it's a marathon. You shouldn't think of it as a sprint when getting those gathering specs up, because it's a big grind that you have to commit to. And we get 50k fame right there. I mean 40k, so maybe worth to take these mobs on as well. Alright, so let's see if we can find our first golem for the day. And we also get a hemp here. Nice. And we have a track, so not fighting the golem this step, but maybe the next one. We just have to find a track for now. And if you see I'm flashing my UI like this, make sure you bind your recording mode key. Bind your recording mode key for you to be able to do that. And you can find that over here in key bindings. If you scroll all the way down, it's somewhere over here, recording mode. I have it to T. Bind it to anything that is accessible to you and use it so that you can hide your UI and just see enemies at the side of your screen better. Alright, if you made it this far in the video, thanks for watching, and I hope you're enjoying this more raw, well, it's still gonna be cut, but a bit more commentary, a bit more chill gameplay, rather than the usual PvP, condensed PvP or tutorial videos we have on this channel. If you enjoy it, make sure you leave a comment and let me know that you do enjoy this, and let me know what else you would like to see me do in the future in this sort of format. Alright, so our first golem, let's fight it. And the golem has quite a large amount of HP. So it's gonna take at least 2 steps to take it down. Try to dodge it as much as possible. The golem doesn't deal too much damage. Oh, and we actually seem to have a... Yep. So you saw he dismounted at the edge of my screen, and I'm going away right now. Because he's gonna jump me, I think. Let's see. Let's find an encounter. Where is he? I know he's here. Oh. Well, while we see if that ganker is still here or not, we have a 5.3 resource here, so let's get it quickly. Oh my god, and it's full. This is gonna be a good amount of silver, so this is exactly why you should take your tools. You're generally not gonna make much silver unless you find 0.3 or 0.2 resources. Well, especially at this low level, so... Let's see. This is already 50k silver. If we're lucky to get some triple procs or double procs. There we go, we get a double proc there. And we get another double proc. So we have 100k silver just from that, or almost 100k silver, just from that one encounter. Alright, so let's see if the ganker is still here. And you see, I took too long. After I engaged the mob, I ran away and did something else. As soon as you engage the mob for the first time, the exhaust timer begins. And you need to take it, to fight it basically, otherwise it's just gonna run away. And this is just gonna happen. You get interrupted by gankers. Sometimes the mob runs away, and it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter that much. You just have to go to the next step and fight the mob there again. So yeah, I'm thinking of maybe doing this sort of long play, 1 hour, 2 hour session activity in the Ava roads, especially after the update comes. So stay tuned for that. And if it sounds interesting, make sure you let me know in the comments if you would like to see that sort of activity. But yeah, it's quite enjoyable. I like Albion just for this reason, because you have a large variety of activities you can do. You have to dodge the big attacks from this guy, otherwise he kills you in almost one attack. He's gonna do the big AoE. Oh no, he's just gonna do this again. Right. And yeah, the bad part about this weapon is because you don't really have the time to use your snipe shot. And I mean, you could speed it up using a Scholar Robe or a Morgana Cape, but that's a big investment to make for this weapon, because you give up your armor and you give up your reset on the Carleon Cape. I don't really like that, so that's why I'm not using these. Definitely this weapon is not optimal for doing tracking. Probably one-handed dagger is the best option, or maybe even the Whispering Bow. Or even the light or heavy crossbow is gonna be a much better choice. Alright, let's see if we can fight the mob this time. I don't like the presence of these creatures here, but I have to deal with it. I lose my mount, which is not ideal. But it's hard to... sometimes it's hard to keep your mount in these fights. Here we have to take care of the little guy, but I wait until he gets out of the immunity because I want to deal damage to both of them at once. There we go. And he's gonna use that again, and now I can use my snipe once. Yeah, and you see just how tanky the tier 7 golem is. But it's fine. We'll get it down eventually. We have a 5-1 fiber node. I'm gonna take that. I'm gonna spend the time taking that. It's right next to the exit as well, so it's gonna be very safe to take. There should be basically no chance of dying. So there was previously a 6-1 node, but I don't have the spec for that. However, 5-1, if you can get a full 5-1 node, you get like a bit more than 1% in your gathering spec for that thing. For that gathering profession for the next level, so it's definitely worth it. Yeah, this is gonna take a while. If we don't get ganked, that is. And our hideout buff is gonna run out as well, which is not ideal. But I think I left the hideout after like 15 minutes after this started, so I should have reset it. I could have 15 extra minutes right now. But it's not that big of a deal. We lose 10% fame bonus. Alright, so let's speed up this gathering if we can. Mr. Editor, which is still me. And we see it takes a few minutes to gather, and we don't get that much silver, less than 50k. But the fame is important, so we like to take these when we can. Oh, circle mob. We take those. Oh, we have another Oracle mob and we have a 5-3 resource here. Please be full. Please be full. It's full. Let's go. 5-3 hide. 5 ticks. That's gonna give us a good amount of silver. Especially if you get some triple ticks. Come on. There we go. Oh, that's a double tick, but it's fine. It's a gathered double tick, so that gives us double the fame. We get a single tick there. And there's the triple tick that we like to see. And another single tick. So we just got 100k silver. Easy. And another one of these. And we see we have 20 minutes after each step to do the next step of our tracking. And you see that it is more than enough to do any activities in the meantime that you would like to do. So even now I'm just gathering more mobs to kill. And we have a new fighting step, so let's see how much we can take down this time. We have an enemy here. And just as a tidbit of information, as soon as you enter the circle, the monster spawns that you're tracking. So until you reach the circle, it doesn't exist on the map, so nobody can know that you're about to fight a mob there until you enter the circle. So as soon as I stepped in that boundary, anyone that would come here would see the mob and could potentially wait for me to try to gank me while I was fighting it. Let's see if we have enough DPS to take it down. Come on, one more. No, don't run. Okay, 180k fame. And just like 50k silver, which is fine. Alright, so that's the tier 7 mob done. 180k fame. We lost 10% of our fame buff, so as I mentioned previously, that would have been like 200k. And a tier 8 should be about 250k, but I am not able to show that in this video because I don't have that unlocked. But achieving the ability to hunt tier 7 is pretty quick, so you should be able to replicate what you're seeing in this video pretty quickly if you begin tracking for maybe like 4 or 5 hours. You should also have some gathering ability, so you can definitely replicate this activity. And it is quite entertaining, I would say. I like it. It's pretty chill. Obviously, if you do it at more active hours of the day, you're gonna run into more enemies, more people trying to gank you, but that's just how Albion works. And let's take a tier 5 quarry, or maybe let's take this root bound. Let's see another mob while we're at it. And I think the only mob I haven't shown is the werewolf. And actually, the werewolf can be one of the most profitable ones to hunt. And it's also the most dangerous because it deals a lot of damage. You should have a soldier helmet if you want to do... Actually, let's see, can we gank this guy? I'm actually going to gank this guy. Why not? Let's see if we can fight him. And I think we're gonna be able to catch him. Yep, he doesn't have any way to run. Oh no, he can actually get away now. I made a mistake. But we have the run anyway, so let's get him. And we just ganked this guy for 400k. And I cannot loot him that much. Okay. What can I not loot? I cannot loot this. What can I throw away? Let's throw away these. Let's throw away these. And I think we're gonna leave the rest. We can actually loot that. And we get 400k just like that by ganking somebody. This is how Albion works, and it can happen to you at any time. Yeah, as you saw, that player was using a druidic staff, which is very easy to gank. If he uses his Q, all you have to do is run into him, run above the Q, and that immediately despawns his mount. And then you can just dismount and chase him. So I was able to chase his Wanderlust because I was using my W ability on mobs while chasing him. So that gives me a constant, almost 30% movement speed buff. And it was just enough to eventually catch up to his Wanderlust. And then I could use my boots a second time because his Wanderlust had a very long cooldown. I made a mistake myself because I used my snipe ability too soon. He ran out of range before the snipe could complete. So actually he had an opportunity to mount up right there and get away. I actually do not have space for these, so let's use this. And we get some more resources. And I think 1 hour is almost up. I think I've been out for more than 1 hour, maybe. So we're soon... I think this is the last track we're gonna do, and then we're gonna go back to the bank and seeing how much total profit we made. There's a crystal spider right here that I'm tempted to take, but it's a bit hard to take alone. I wonder if it's possible. I do not have any healing ability, which is not great. I actually do have a healing ability. I can use this. I'm gonna use that for trying to take down the spider. And we're right next to the portal, so if it is too hard to take down, we can try to run away. Let's see if we have any chance of taking it down. It deals a lot of damage with these auto attacks, so I'm not sure if it's possible. No, it's definitely not possible with this. Maybe if I switch to the druidic staff, but it trashed. Okay, so I'm not able to take that. Absolutely impossible. So let's just get some more of these hides instead. Okay, so I just saw a nature staff approaching. Maybe he will try to go for the spider. And I can gank him and swoop in for the kill. Let's see. Meanwhile, I'm gonna do my tracking steps. Okay, I'm a bit too low, so I'm just gonna retreat and heal up. I'm gonna keep an eye on the spider to see if it moves on the map. If it moves, it means somebody is fighting it, so I can try to swoop in at that point. Okay, I have too much stuff. I don't know what to throw away. I think these, yep. And these are pretty garbage. Right. Nobody's fighting the spider yet. And here we have our first Sylvian. So checking the spider, and then we can engage it. The Sylvian is, I think, one of the tougher tier 4 mobs to take down. So you have to avoid stepping in these roots because they're gonna screw you. They're gonna deal a lot of damage and keep you in place, and you can just get comboed with being kept in place by the roots. And when it does this, you should step outside and then go back. And I stepped in a root, and then now I get bled. And this is just a terrible situation to be in. And I can pre-use my E. Takes damage as soon as it comes out. And I'm running out of mana. But it's fine because it's exhausted anyway. Oh my god. Can I please... So while I wait for my mana to regenerate, I just spend the time gathering. Did I just throw away my boots? No, they're here. Okay. Nobody's fighting the spider. Okay, this session is a bit longer than expected, so it's more like 1.5 hours, but we just spend a lot of time gathering. And again, it's not gonna give you the best silver per hour, but you have to fame up somehow at some point. So as good a time as any when doing the tracking activities, because it's more efficient because you can only spend time gathering the efficient nodes, which is the enchanted ones. So overall, you're not power leveling, but you're going to be more efficient at... you're just going to be more efficient and spend less time for the same amount of fame. Alright, and we finished the Sylvian. So we did almost every mob that exists, except the Downbird, which is tier 8, and the Werewolf. And I think we did every other one in this session. Alright, so let's journey back and see just how much silver we made. Alright, so taking a look at our inventory here, we have 1.4 million. However, the tools and the tracking kit itself is going to be like 100k or so. So let's deposit everything and we can see the precise value on that. So yeah, what what we have in the inventory was 120k. So that means we made about 1.28 million silver in 1 hour and 15 minutes, I think, was about the time we spent. 1 hour and 15 minutes. And let's see exactly how much fame we gained. And I can tell you the exact value because I was at 50 when I began. And now that means we earned 1.8 million fame in the time we did this. So very decent. And this is especially considering the fact that a lot of the time we did this activity was spent gathering, and I don't know exactly how much gathering fame we earned, but we got a few percentage points in some of our gathering specs. And yeah, that's always worth it. And eventually we're gonna unlock tier 6 and above and be able to be even more efficient at this activity. All right, so that's solo tracking in the Black Zone in Albion, and I hope you enjoyed this longer format, longer content, and as mentioned previously, if you would like to see this format for other activities in Albion, make sure you leave a comment with that, and yeah, I'll see you in the next one.